retroactively how it moved forward. So, I don't want to be one of those people to say this is it exactly. And but yeah, this could certainly unravel, not unravel, unravel is the way it looks. Hashem is directing it, so it's not unraveling, it's unraveling in our limited perspective. But this could certainly turn into the process that we see in the prophets of before Mashiach comes. I mean, it could well be. I mean, again, there are those sages today who say that the Holocaust, World War II, was already the war of Gog and Magog. So you don't know how it works. There's a lot of factors, but there are many factors here that this can go a lot of ways. Now, before I talk tonight, what I wanted to do is, I gave a class to one of my other groups, and I was a little taken aback, which I shouldn't have been, but I was a little taken aback by the fact that those living outside of Israel are so inundated with lies that, like in our circles here, everyone knows, who is on the side of good and who's not. Is not really, we don't have that discussion. It's very, very clear. So, and I was a little taken aback to hear, because I don't go on social media, just to hear. I mean, I knew it. I expected it. I expected that the same people who act as evil people, that today you have a new phenomenon where the other guy, the person who is the Nazi, calls the other person a Nazi. So you live in a world where, well, we don't know if men are women, women are men. We don't know if good is bad, bad is good. It's all words. Everyone just makes up words. My side is right. You're okay. So, like there's a certain place where being here in the Holy Land, being in a world where you're in the reality itself, you kind of forget how hard it is for you guys who live in a world of such lies. I mean, we live in it also, but it's obvious to everyone here. So I kind of want to hear, before I present my session, I really want to hear first what is on your minds. I'm not going to answer the questions now. I'm just going to take like the questions you have, and I'm going to hopefully put it together in one presentation, tying it all together. So you could just feel free first to tell me, what is it that you wonder about in this situation? What is your questions? What are your issues? As I said, I gave another class, and I just hearing how people are saying, the victim is the villain. So that you might have some questions that you want to understand. I'd like to hear from you before I present what I want to present.
Rabbi, let me kick it off and kind of lay out the field, and then everybody can jump in. I think most of the people in this group are very mature spiritually and know what the dynamics are and know what's going on. But I would say that most of us in this group here has been focusing on that's going on over there. This is an exposure to evil. There is a lesson to be learned in this whole process. But what do I need to be doing? Like this is a worldwide. This is a war of good and evil.
Okay,
it's a
good.
Spiritual war as much as it is a physical war.
Okay, I will relate. I have that. Excellent. I'll deal with that. Good. What other things are you thinking about? Are you curious about? Are you wondering about? On your mind?
I have a comment, Rabbi Ingber.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Naomi.
Sorry, I'm listening. I'm just in the middle of cooking something.
That's okay. It looks delicious. I don't know what it is, but
It's well, it's I don't know what you call these things. It's like pizzot. Okay, I know how to make them. I just don't know what they're called.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So I spoke with someone today who I've never actually really talked to before, only just in passing. It's the son of my daughter's babysitter, who's Jewish. and he's very involved in like the Hollywood scene. Like he's like does a lot of acting, like more like high level stuff.
Right.
He teaches on Broadway. He does a lot of interesting.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I understood that this person is a very liberal person, and he told me, he's like, you know, I'm very liberal, and he told me today that he was very surprised at the response from all of his friends about this issue, because he said, you know, in his community, whatever community that is, he said, you know, when like a minority group is perceived to be oppressed, or like they're being like oppressed, he said all of his friends, like, you know, like his Black friends, or, you know, this group and that group, they all kind of like rally around whatever group is,
Right.
you know. And he
Right.
said that he was in complete shock, because he's always, you know, helping like Black Lives Matter movement and all these movements. And he said not a single person, he said all my friends know I'm Jewish, but he said no one has called me or texted me or said anything about Israel to me. He said to the contrary, he was like, every person I'm really close to, they're all just like free Palestine, man. And he said,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
just to mention, I don't have a personal, I could say a lot, but I wasn't surprised to hear that. I'm like, yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me one bit, but I'm wondering how many Jews, like more like secular Jews, or just people around the world, are sort of noticing that, you know, that trend that's kind of happening, if it is a trend.
Well, yeah, it's quite amazing. It's quite, usually what happens in Israel is that it happens after a couple days. In other words, when the terrorists do their things, in the beginning, people support, and then after a couple days, when the Jews try to defend themselves, then it's going to get attacked. Here, it's fascinating, because here, where the Palestinians showed their hand, they showed there is no issue of land for peace, because we gave them the land, we exited, we kicked ourselves out of Gaza. So they have the whole thing. And so they realized by plastering these images of killing Jews, this was not going to further a certain agenda of land. It was going to further the agenda of what their agenda is, which is to kill Jews. And it's fascinating the support that they got. You know, so okay, I'll try to deal with that, but you know, so I'll put your statement, Naomi, into a little question. The question is twofold. I'll take from Naomi. How is it that the regular people in the world, okay, we'll call them this, we'll call them the average not Jewish person, so many of them could have their understanding so messed up? That's question one. And then question two is, how do liberal Jews, who really also have their values very confused, how are they going to make sense of this situation?
It's the sources
Okay,
of
I hear
media.
that. What's that?
It's the sources of media, partially, that they consume. And, you know, I notice around where I live, it really is kind of matches up politically. So more conservative persons that I know as friends pretty much have that narrative that Israel was attacked, but more liberal friends tend to be on, you know, they want to be on the side of the Palestinians, because they, you know, I guess have this media that they consume somewhere. I don't know where it is, but
Right.
that says to them,
You know, Steve, I think, Stephen, what you're saying is correct. The question is, you all that are here, how is it that you are smarter than the average bear, where you're all able to say, this is obviously not what's going on? So when you read the news and I read the news, and I think, how come intelligent people, Harvard, how come the people in Harvard can't understand what's so obvious? You know, I would love to just blame it all on media and misinformation.
they're blinded by their ideology. They're blinded by their ideology.
Yeah, there's something else going on.
And also, they don't they also don't have a belief system in God, and that's part of it too. So
Okay, so good. So we'll talk about that. Any other points, any other questions
I don't
before I do
Yeah,
say-
I have a thought.
Please.
It's Terry. I don't have my video
Hey,
on.
Terry.
Um,
It's okay.
yeah, it's like I think, and the other thing that I hear, not that I believe it, but the other thing that I hear is that I'm seeing on social media sometimes is that they'll say, even they'll be like, well, I'm a Jewish person and I still don't agree with the Israeli government. And they'll talk about like, well, the reason they did this is because Israel is committing atrocities in Palestine against the Palestinians every day. And I was like, really? Like what?
Yeah, it's the biggest lie in the world. But yeah, I guess I'll deal with that a little bit. What is this lie? Because it is so, it is such, it's like, it's incredible. If you come to Israel and you see how an Israeli Palestinian lives, you will be blown away because they actually live better than the Jews. They have all the rights they want. They don't even pay taxes. They don't go to the army, but they don't have regulations. They live freely. They are members of the Israeli parliament. They can vote. They can do whatever they want. They have complete and absolute rights, and that's why many of the Palestinian Israelis, the Arab Israelis, the last thing they would want to do is to live in Palestinian Authority or in Hamas. So the whole thing is a big illusion. I'll deal with it a little bit, but why did they go for this business? I have to talk about that a little bit also. Good point, Terry.
To me, the thing too, one other thought was that to me, the thing that makes it so obvious that it's just all about extermination of the Jewish nation is because when you look at the Arab world, it's thousands time, and you can't even see Israel on the map barely. You
Yeah.
have to get down with a a magnifying glass almost to see it on the map. And they just want this little slice of pie, like a bite of the pie. And yet the other Arab nations could absorb all these Palestinians and do everything for them and set them up in life so easily with all their oil money, but they just refuse to do so.
Yeah,
They
don't
refuse
want
to do it because the Arab, I mean, not the Palestinians, they've refused to do it because the radical side is terrorist. That's why they don't want them in their country.
Yeah,
I mean, bottom line.
It keeps
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Well, it is. It keeps the storyline true. The storyline is not a real storyline. So okay, so I guess I'll give a little bit of history to understand this, and we'll talk about it a little bit. Okay, so fine. Let's jump into a couple things. I'm sorry, David had his hand up. David, what were you gonna say?
Well, Cheyenne also had something too. So
Cheyenne, please.
we'll hurry up.
Yeah, Shane,
No,
go
it's
ahead.
okay.
Thank you, Rabbi. Mine was just about, I mean, for months I've been trying to grow in the knowledge like of Ein Od Milvado. Like, how do I still view that? And how do I still have strength in this situation and find that I can still see it in this lens as well when things are going crazy?
Okay, good. I will try to work that into what I have to say. Very good. Thank you. Yeah. David, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I just, in light of the current events, and especially in light of like Zechariah 14:16, that verse specifically says the survivors from all the nations that come against Jerusalem.
Right.
Obviously, we weren't born Jews, but we practice the faith of Abraham as B'nai Noah. So we don't want to be, we have no choice where Hashem put us as our nationhood, right? How do we how do we not be a part of hostility against Israel, and if our countries go that way, God forbid, Chas v'shalom.
Right.
Where does that put us as in the scope of the future? Where are we? Do we die in our own countries as a part of this conflict, or is there a place for us to flee to potentially and to have some type of unity with Israel in the future? Because I certainly would not want me or my family to be a part of a nation that would go against Hashem or the Israeli people.
Okay, good. I will put that in also, and we'll try to deal with all of these topics. And if I leave one out, please tell me, and I'll try to put it in. Thank you very much, everybody. So, all right, so let's talk here a little bit. First, I want to start talking about my own personal feelings, because now I was in the States and back in Israel, so like, where would I prefer to be? Kind of in the safety of America, or in the heart of the a conflict? And God willing, there is obviously people who have normal feelings. They could be afraid, but Bizrat, God willing, I hope, pray that my family and myself and all the Jewish people will be fine, will be saved. It feels very right to be here. It feels very right to be here. It's in a certain sense. This is what I was telling you before about the whole Facebook world and people answering. I feel I'm in reality, and let me explain what that means here. King Solomon was the wisest of all people. It says that the famous it's a verse in books of Kings where he goes to sleep, and God tells him he's going to give him a gift. And what does he want? He asks for wisdom to judge the people properly. He gets the wisdom, and then he has this tremendous wisdom, and he applies it to make the world a better place. Now, one of the wisdoms that he had, it says, is that he knew. And it sounds like a very small wisdom, but I want to explain to you why it's a very deep wisdom. It said he knew how to plant everything in the land of Israel. He knew which little row you could plant avocados. He knew where you could plant pineapple. He knew. Now, it doesn't sound like such a great wisdom, because it sounds like a horticulture wisdom. Why was that so great? And the answer is very, very special and very important. The land of Israel is called the tabor, the belly button of the world. It's in the center. It's in the center of the world. The Middle East. It's the middle. And everything comes out from the land of Israel. And the land of Israel has Jerusalem as its center. And everything comes out from there. And therefore, when I look at a place, I say, coconuts grow fantastic in Hawaii. So there's going to be a place in the land of Israel that parallels that, because everything comes out from that microcosm, which is the land of Israel. Therefore, what you need to understand, and that's so Shlomo's wisdom was, he understood, one of his wisdoms, he understood how everything has its root and how the root affects everything in the world. So we are in the root. We are in the center point right now where it's all happening. The battle of good and evil did not start last Shabbat. The battle of good and evil has been going on for thousands of years. And people get, deluded in their comforts of what they think is going on, but it is happening. It's constantly happening. The good news is that in the end, good will prevail. Okay, God will show that he runs the world. He will show that he's taken his people Israel, and that is his Am Segula, his nation. And from there, all of the goodness will go out to the entire world. As we said many, many times here, all the nations, the righteous of the world, have a portion of the world to come because they connect to the mission. And David, as far as the concern is that Hashem knows everyone's heart and what they want to do. And as long as you are a person supporting Israel, doing what you can't necessarily, control what other people in your country are doing. You could try, but there is not the expectation that you can go and revolt if you can't. If you could. I mean, that's the idea of voting, I guess, in a democracy. But what has to happen is that the people have to say, what side of the reality am I going to? Now, here we got a problem, And this is the most amazing thing to me. I'm going to give just a couple minutes of reality, because people don't know, especially today, where who reads big books? You know, we read little short. Your video cannot be more than 3 minutes. in my program, I talked to you about some of the seven mindsets. I had to do the deepest ideas, and I made videos of them. And the guy who was filming it said, it can't be more than 3.5 minutes. I said, but this is the deepest concept. There's like 1,000,000 pages of this, 3.5 minutes, and there was two. I said, no, I'm not. I'm making it 6.5 minutes. So, like, that's too much here again. So what is the reality of the story? Let's just go through this very, very briefly. The Jewish people have been in the land of Israel for thousands of years. Those who understand and accept the Bible, the Torah, understand that God gave the land to the Jews. Now, the truth is that even though the Canaanites were here, one explanation, and Rashi sounds very, very clear, that this was meant to be for the Jews, because it was given to Shem, one of the 3 sons of Noah, which means this was the land decreed for the Jews from time immemorial. So we know the Jews lived here for a long time. Okay, in the time of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they lived here. As a nation, when they left Egypt, they came and lived in the land of Israel. That was almost 1,000 years. Okay, that they lived with King David, King Solomon, and they lived there the whole time. There was the destruction of the first temple. The Jews came back after 70 years. The second Commonwealth, the temple was 420 years till it was destroyed in the year 70 by the Common Era by the Romans. But this is the Jewish homeland. If you don't believe in the Bible, well, look at the archaeology. It's pretty obvious. Okay, so what happens is this is the place the Jews have always lived. Now, when the Jews were conquered by the Romans, there were some Jews that remained here. And then what happened was the Roman Empire became the Holy Roman Empire, became, Christianity became the religion. You're going to have the Christians here. You're going to have other conquerors here. You're going to have the Muslims here. You're going to have the Mongols here. You're going to have a lot of people. The Jews maintained their connection to the land always. But what happens is for a long time, when the land of Israel becomes a desolate land, as Mark Twain quotes in his trip to Israel, if you read this, the recanting of Mark Twain when he came to the land of Israel in the middle 1800s, says it was the dreariest, deadest land. There was nobody here. He said we didn't see a person in the road, because Israel had become a backwater. And that is not an accident. That actually says it in the Torah. In the Torah, it says, in the curses, when God says, I will kick you out of the land, it says, but the land will not be able to be settled by your enemies. Israel's beauty of they talk about now, and the great fruits and vegetables, you don't hear that 100 years ago. You don't hear it 300 years ago, 400 years ago. And out of an empire, what was this? It was a backwater. So the land of Israel, where Jews continued to live, other people lived here. The Crusades were here. These people came in, people had control. But the thing you need to understand is there was never a nation of the Palestinians. That is a fabrication. That never happened. That was created by Yasser Arafat in the 60s, where he said, we'll call ourselves the Palestinians. That wasn't the Palestinians. The word Palestine was a derogatory term made by the Romans to insult the Jews after they conquered Israel, because the ancient Philistines don't exist. That's not the Palestinians. They were a nation that worshipped a fish god called Dagon, and there's no connection to who are these people that call the Palestinians today? They were nomadic people. They were Arabs and not Arabs, and that were floating through the land. And the truth is, in the 1800s, when the Jews started coming back more en masse, so they always were here, but there were different times, like the Spanish Inquisition in 1492. So the Jews that left, they went to settle the city of Tzfat, the holy city of Tzfat, which the old Kabbalists were there. They went from Spain. That's where they went. So the Jews were here in different parts, but there were other people floating around, and it was under Ottoman control and different things. In the 1800s, which was then under the Ottoman control, Jews started coming back more en masse. And there was a famous Jew named Baron Rothschild. And what he did was, Cheyenne, your son is so cute. He's smiling there at us because he likes the Torah. Beautiful. So what happens is that Baron Rothschild started giving Jews money to open up businesses like wineries, Carmel Winery. He set up a city called Petach Tikva in the 1800s. For every Jew that came, nomadic Arabs from different countries came also. They needed work. They were poor. So the whole story about the Palestinians is a complete farce. There was never Palestinian people. There was the Jewish people who had the land. They were kicked out. They were still here, and it transferred hands in many, many places. And the Crusades and the Mongols and all the different people, and the Ottoman Empire had it for 400 years. But this was not a place that was a nation called Palestine. That never happened. The British, who had the mandate for Israel. Okay, this is just it's so like basic. What happened was they had the man. There were Jews that were living here, and there were Muslims that were living here. And in 1917, the Lord Balfour made the Balfour Declaration in World War I that said the Jewish people should be given a portion of the land of Israel. And then after the Holocaust, where there were Jews that were living here, there were Arabs that were living here, what happened was the UN decided to partition this land to give the Jews a part and the Arabs a part. Now, here's the part of modern history you just need to know, because this stuff is just a complete and absolute lie. So what was the problem? Well, when they gave the Jews the sliver of land they had, and they gave the Arabs their portion, to split it up, the Jews said, okay, great, wonderful. We have something, you have something, we'll build that you build. The Arabs declared war and came to kill the Jews. This was not because of the territories of 1967. It didn't happen yet. It didn't happen yet. Their mission was to destroy and kill all the Jews and throw them into the sea. That is how the so-called refugees happened, because the Arabs said, leave the places we're going to bomb and destroy them, and you'll get all of their places too. Then they left, and the Arabs keep them in these camps. Do you know how many Jews were kicked out of Muslim countries when the state of Israel was formed? Where'd they all go? Where are all those refugees? Well, they live in Israel. They kicked them out, millions. So what happened was in 48, 47, when 48 really, so what happened was when the UN said the British, who had the mandate for Israel, were going to partition and give the Jews that were here a place, the Arabs that were a place, the Jews said, okay, the Arabs said, no, we're going to destroy you. And they fought and they lost. They fought again in 67. To destroy the Jews. That was a Six-Day War. They lost again. And the Jews took more land because they came to kill us. They lost the war because God gave it to us, our land. Now, the craziest part about this is that the Jewish people, who were not necessarily Torah knowledgeable people, who were fighting in the IDF, they believed, as some of them believe today, and unfortunately, many of the people that were butchered by these terrorist, degenerate, evil people, they were people that supported the Arabs. It was a very, very left-wing groups that were there. The people that were killed were the ones who thought, oh, we could live with these people. So what happened was that they were saying to them, come back. You could have the land. We just want peace. There's no one to talk to. The Jews kept doing this process of land for peace. And ladies and gentlemen, If you wanted a clearer demonstration that the Land for Peace thing, the Oslo Accords of the 1990s, was a farce, this is it. Whenever someone tells you about the occupation of Gaza, they know what they're talking about. There is no occupation of Gaza. The Jews kicked themselves out. The Jews who lived side by side with the Arabs in this area called Gaza, which is Aza, which in the book of Joshua is clearly part of the tribe of Judah. So the Jews, the government, Ariel Sharon, forced the Jews to leave their homes. Gaza was a beautiful place. My brother used to go there for vacation all the time. It was a place Gush Katif. It provided for all of Israel the special hydroponics vegetables. It was like a great place. My brother used to go there vacation all the time. So the government in 205 kicked the Jews out and gave the Arabs complete control, but not like the Arabs have in Israel, where they're free to function. They're members of parliament. They have every single right that anyone else has in the land of Israel. But no, when they're going to have control, there can't be Jews here because they'll kill them. So the Jews ejected their own people, gave them the Gaza Strip. So when someone says to you, well, it's occupation, that is the most bizarre thing, because what do you mean? We kicked ourselves out. We destroyed their homes. We took the people who were living there and forced them to leave and forced them to give up all of their life and gave it to you. And then what happened was the Americans, the Europeans gave them billions of dollars. Where did those billions of dollars go? Oh, they didn't go to build up a beautiful place for the people that were living there. They went to the pockets of the politicians and to create more destruction and disaster. It's the biggest farce in the world. When someone says to the occupation, the ill treatment, you could just say to them, understand very simply, it is a lie. The Arabs that live in Israel live totally free, and they know it. I've talked to Arabs who are like, the last thing I want is live under Arab rule, because the only place they can have freedom is in Israel. So the Israelis give the Arabs complete freedom to be in their country, and then they give the Palestinians the places. You have it, we'll kick ourselves out. And what's the response? The response is that that's not what we want. Well, what do you want? Well, they want to kill every Jew. Now, the truth is, the antipathy the Arabs have for the Jews is really not greater than it was for the Christians. You just have to know that. I mean, the Crusades were the fight, was the infidel, was anyone who was non-Arab. But what happened is that the Jews are now in closer proximity. So that's why whenever you'll hear Iran saying death to Israel and death to America, little Satan and big Satan, that's the way they say it. So you have to understand here is that the Gazans were given this land, and who did they elect supposedly democratically to be their leaders? Terrorists, Hamas. And that's what it is. So this thing, which should be obvious to anyone, this complete farce, because there is Jews do not live in Arab countries anymore. No one else does, because they have Dehimi laws. You are a second-class citizen. That's not what happens here in the land of Israel. The Arab Israelis have complete rights, and those who live in other places have been given the land, and their response is, instead of building it up, making a beautiful place for themselves, that's not what they want to do. So that is the little history lesson. We can go into more detail of it, but that's basically the upshot. Now, what is it that the world? So why does the world why does the world not see this? Well, there's a few answers. One is like, I forgot who said it before, but it was said before, I forgot who Stephen said. One is lack of information. So I'll give the benefit of the doubt to some people, they just simply don't know. So those you could educate and say, what are you talking about? That the Gaza Strip was given to them completely. There's occupation. Jews kicked themselves out. They gave them the land. What are you talking about? So you know that some and the ill treatment. It's also a complete bizarre phenomenon because they're in the government. They have complete rights. Just go around Israel. You see any Arab Israeli, he votes, he does whatever he wants to do. He has complete rights. And I said, the truth is he actually lives better than Israelis because Israelis have more government control and regulations. So you can't, like, if you go into an Israeli neighborhood, the government has control and tells you how to build. So like, you know, here I live in an apartment building, you know, in America I lived on a plot of land. In Israel, it's government control. The Arabs, there's no government control. They build what they want. They live in mansions. You know, you go to see like Abu Ghosh. Abu Ghosh is a neighborhood in outside of Jerusalem, right next to a Jewish neighborhood, which I used to be involved with a lot. But Abu Ghosh is actually, in that sense, in better shape because they don't have any regulations. So they build big houses and they don't have the limits. So the Arabs have as many rights as Israelis, if not more. So some people don't know because of lack of education, and some people don't know because they got something wrong with them. They have something evil in them. And this is what David was asking before, where the demarcation comes to. I want to tell you something, you know, like, you know, this thing that happened in Canada. We couldn't have Dan here today. I told him too late I was going to do this. So Dan in Canada wasn't able to join us. But this thing in Canada where they brought in this Nazi and they gave him a standing ovation in Parliament. Now, of course, you know, you can say, and correctly so, well, accidents happen. They didn't know. But, you know, everybody in the world understands, you know, some people call it karma. Some people the Jews call it hashgacha, Hashem running the world. It's very hard to get a concept to imagine somebody who's good and right and pure would end up being in this unfortunate situation of standing and giving a standing ovation for a Nazi, especially when the Canadian government called the truckers were protesting against them Nazis. How does that work? How does it that a person ends up inadvertently, according to their understanding, supporting the Nazi and oppressing the person who is on the side of good? How does it happen? And the deeper reason is because that's where their heart is. That's where their heart is. There is a very, very deep thing called Esav Sones Yaakov. The anti-Semitism is a very, very, very old disease. One of the oldest diseases in the book. And the reason for it, and this gets to David's point really earlier, and I've shared this with you before, the Midrash explains the root of anti-Semitism. And I've said it to you before, but I'll say it to you again. It's very, very important. The Midrash says, in the story of Yosef, the brothers who were righteous, they were tzaddikim, they were holy people, they ended up making a very, very bad judgment about their brother Joseph. How did they get it so wrong? They were such great people. How did they get it so? And they believed they were right. They believed they were justified. How did they get it so wrong? So the Midrash says because they sensed this idea that Yosef is being favored by the father, but that Jacob is favoring Yosef, and that bothers a child. And therefore, there is a place where the nations of the world have to deal with the idea that God said the Jewish people are going to be my chosen nation. I always try to explain this to you all because it's so important. It's not a egocentric, ethnocentric concept. God created, when Adam was created, he wasn't Jewish, he was not Jewish. Everyone was, there was one universality. People in the world decided to be evil for 2,000 years. Okay, they were really evil. And came along Abraham, and he fought against everyone, said, this is not true. There is a benevolent, omnipotent God. Stop with your idols, stop with your murder, stop with your actions as kindness. And Abraham was bringing in people. He was making converts. He was bringing in people. Yitzchak then, Yaakov, anyone could have come onto it, but what happened was God put a 2,000-year time limit on the world, where if after the first 2,000 years of time, people rejected him and only Abraham chose God, so God said, you chose me, I choose you. Now, this is still very, very fair, because God said then, when they gave a Torah, whoever wants to get the Torah too. But he looked into the hearts of the nations and they didn't want as a whole. Then God says, okay, anyone who wants to convert can convert and be Jewish and take on this mission. And if you don't want to convert, you can keep the 7 Noahide laws and have a portion in the world to come, because you're doing your mission in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, you want to talk about egalitarian and fair. There ain't nothing fairer than that. There's nothing fairer than that. So some people say, okay, great. I want to convert. I want to be righteous Noahide. I want to make. And some people, in them, it just creates another level of hatred, and they can't get out of it. And they don't even realize what it is. They don't realize what it is. They don't know this. Clapping for Nazis. And you don't have this clearer than in our world today. People don't know what's up and down. And they just give new names for something. This is evil. Well, how do you know that? Where'd you get that from? Well, Taylor Swift told me, okay. I heard it on Facebook, So everyone has their like, their ideas where they get from these craziest things, and they don't, and they can't read a book, and it's all propaganda. So what happens is that some people, as was said before, are misinformed. That's true. And some people do not have a problem what side of history they're taking. And that's what David said before. It's very, very, very crucial to be on the right side of history here, because it's not a question just of, oh, I rooted for the right team, I rooted for the wrong team. It's not just that. You root for the wrong team, you're part of the ones that fight Hashem. That's what it says. There's a passage we learned. It says the enemies of the people are enemies of God. So a person's got to choose where they're at. Now, that is the thing. So now, can you talk to these people? I saw someone said a message. They can't. A lot of people you can't talk to. You just can't talk to. And the truth is, like, and this is why I don't know. I'm happy I'm in the Holy Land, in the reality, and not in an echo of reality, which is the world outside, and even more so with the social media lies, because you listen to people and you're like, I don't understand. It's like, I always give people an example. What happens if you came into a city and everyone was walking on their heads? Everyone was walking upside down. Imagine that. You walked into the city and that's what everyone did. How long do you think it would take for you to start thinking, I should probably walk on my head too? I don't know. But if everyone's doing it, I don't know. This must be normal. So you're living in a world that, men are women, women are men, good is bad, bad is good. you know. So the reality is we need to know, and it's so, I one of the things that I really, and this is the debate in Israel. How do you deal with the situation? How do you deal with this right now? And I wish the Israeli government was a Torah government, because if I was in charge, if I was Netanyahu, I wouldn't want to decide these things. I would put a court together of the greatest rabbis to say, how do you deal with this? You have now a situation where you have people who, it's obvious, they've shown our goal is to kill you. That's what it is. It's obviously not land. They got the land. It's obviously not like, they're trying to present, because they put it on social media what they do, and they got a lot of support. So they already showed their goal. So how do you deal with an enemy that wants to kill you and then hides behind women and children? How do you deal with that? It's a very, very interesting question. I've gone through it. I spent the past 2 days going through this question myself. It's a very, I can talk about it. I have a lot of sources to explain it, but this is not a simple thing, because if you don't go, what do? If you don't, the thing with Hamas, and this is the craziest part of the whole thing, is that they were democratically elected by their people. They were cheering when people and babies were tortured. They were cheering for all of this. So are they part of this? Are they themselves terrorists? Because there's two different parts to this. One is what we call innocence. People are innocent. And then you have to know, they're coming to kill you. Well, we're not Christians. We don't believe turn the other cheek. We believe if someone comes to kill you, you should kill them first. So unfortunately, the Israeli government is not really seeking out the Torah question here, which they should, because it's a hard dilemma. And the reality is that they generally use their logic of what is the furthest liberal logic. And unfortunately, it's not good for anyone, because what happens is the terrorists remain the terrorists. And if you do a mission where you go door to door into the lion's den, how many Jewish innocent soldiers are being endangered? So there's a whole discussion, but the reality is, and I'll present it to you this way without getting into the whole legal understanding. Everyone knows that if it's your place, you have a house, and you said to someone, you know what, I'm going to give you the den. This is my house. You could live in my den. And then the person started killing the members of the house. You all know what you would do. You would not be like, okay, let's be proportionate. Everyone knows what they would do. It's obvious. It's simple, the most basic thing. So, but the Israelis, unfortunately, because it's not a Torah government, they try to apply their logic, and their logic is influenced by by people who make laws of war. The Esav, who is the master of war, he makes laws on how to kill each other. I mean, but they don't keep those laws. I guarantee you. I was born and bred in America, and we don't do that in America. There is no way that if this happened in America, if you had a part of America that was given over, I don't know, let's say, Mexicans came in and they were not, they came in legally and they were given, they were given California. And then they started lobbing bombs in and killing Americans. Believe me, everyone knows there was no chance in the world America would start going door to door and saying that wouldn't happen. What are you talking about? So the thing is that the Jews need to know, and you all need to know, that this is our home. It's our essential home. It's always been our home. It will always be our home. And we have tried with these people to give them, to work with them. They have complete freedom in the land of Israel. They were given Gaza, and we unilaterally pulled ourselves out of our place of living. And all we said is, we just want to live in peace. And now you got to deal with a world where people, people are full of lies. And if you could educate someone that wants to be educated, feel free to do it. If somebody is on Facebook and ranting, they don't want to know. And the main thing you need to know is you need to know your own conviction and your own what you know to be true. And David, if you do that, you won't get caught in the wrong side of history, because that's what you support. Hashem rewards everyone who does what's right, Jewish, not Jewish, male, female, everyone, doesn't matter where they are, who they are. Hashem knows exactly what your intention is and what you want to do. So if you can affect the people in your country, do it. If you can't, then you, to whatever degree, you have to know where you stand and know what you believe. You want to now support the land of Israel in any way you can. If that means donating financially, if it means praying, if it means doing good things, if it means just saying I support Israel because I know that this is God's people and it's their land. Whatever it is, but as long as you determine the correct side. Now, Cheyenne had to step out a second, but I do want to relate to what her point was, and that's the point I think I didn't get to. So yeah, good. Welcome back, Cheyenne. So the reality is that how do we deal with this? How do we deal with the pain of this? And we have to know something, and it's very hard to understand this, but the reality is that there's different ways in the world that Hashem fixes the entire world. The ideal way is for us to do Torah and mitzvot, to do the right things. And if the right things are done, then that creates the positive response. Unfortunately, sometimes difficult times are actually part of the remedy themselves. And it should never be thought that there is you don't say this in a time of mourning, because I don't, it's a time of mourning, and I'm mourning for those that died. But you have to understand, there's always an exact calculation. A bomb did land in my neighborhood. On that Saturday, a bomb landed in my neighborhood, right next to all the line of synagogues where hundreds of people were dancing. The Iron Dome missed it, and it landed in my neighborhood. And there were hundreds of people dancing, and the bomb did not go off. Okay? That literally right here, right in my neighborhood. So yes, there are miracles that people see, and there are times of unfortunate judgment that happens, and people that have been struck in a very, very difficult way. But you have to understand that even that, especially with God's people, we know that it's all part of this process that we're in to rectify the world. And our job right now really is, the whole world's job is to be on the side of right, because those who are not, it's not gonna end well. Those who are on the side of right, it will end well, even when it's hard. Because we do not believe that anything in the world that is difficult is meant for negative. It's always meant to bring about the redemption, always meant to rectify, purify, and there's been a lot of things that have that have happened. One thing I mentioned in one of the classes I gave to one of my other groups was that this is something that happens, unfortunately. There was some division amongst the Jewish people recently, different issues with the Supreme Court and blah blah of Israel. And again, it's unfortunate, but if people don't keep the Torah, so they're unfortunately confused and they don't really know what's right, and they make their own ideas of what's right. And sometimes that is a precursor to when our enemies start to attack us. And after that happens, the Jewish people unite, and the Jewish people are all united now. And when they're united, then what happens is that we see redemption, we see miracles. And that what I'm going to tell you here is that even though it's scary, but Hashem is running every single thing. And in the end of this is going to be miracles, and we're going to be better off than before. How, when, and where? I don't know. I'm not a prophet. But I learned the Torah, and the Torah says that that's the reality, and I know it is, and everyone has to do what they have to do. I tomorrow morning, because we have the learning, there's a learning cycle in Israel that the study halls, the yeshivas take, and they start, they have off on Sukkot and the week afterwards, and then most of the yeshivas actually started a week early. Our learning group did not start a week early. I mean, we learned on our own, but we didn't get together because since there are no schools, so the kids are all home and this and that. But we're getting together tomorrow, and it was amazing. There's some things going around, different videos going around. So one just went around was from a soldier in the front line, and it's in Hebrew. I would send it to you, but there was no translation of it. It was in Hebrew, and the guy is like, everyone asks, what do we need here? What do we need? What do I need? Says, you sent us stuff. We have soap, we have shampoo. What I need is I need those that are learning Torah to go and to learn and to pray and to do what you have, the spiritual components. That's what we need. So everyone should try to do something good, do something purposeful, do something that supports the side of good, and let that's going to be the things that we do to because the reality is that all of the, and that's why prayer is so important to understand, because the act of davening, of praying, is a uniting and connecting with Hashem. So when you were distant and situations that create that problem cause a distance, the solution is to reunite on a higher, deeper level. And that's really what happens all the time. When a person feels that they're far away from the person they love, then they want to connect more. And so what happens is through this challenge Jewish people are going through, we turn to God, and the redemption and the great things, the miracles are going to happen. And how difficult will be the process of this process in the Talmud is called childbirth. That's what it's called. It's called childbirth because anyone knows, before the baby's born, that transition point is rough. Everything looks backwards. Everything looks like that. Somebody would see a woman in transition and did not know what that was. They would think the person is dying instead of the person is bringing life into the world. Right? Exactly what it is. So the process doesn't look good. It's a little rough, but you need that to transition into a new level. So God willing, we're going to see very good things here, and Hashem will protect the Jewish people, and all of us here who are, some people I know are Jewish on this group, and some people are Noachites, and some people in the process of becoming Noachites. Again, the idea is that to understand that there is one God who created the world. He gave the Torah, and gave the mitzvot to the non-Jews, the 7 mitzvot by Noach, and he gave the Targum mitzvot to the Jewish people, and he has a mission and a plan, and you want to be part of that plan on the side of good. And this right now is the demarcation. This is a real demarcation. This is like, what are you on the side of good or not? Because if you can't see it now, those friends on Facebook who can't see it now, I don't know how much hope they have. Those who wake up now will wake up now and hopefully be on the right side of history. Okay, that's my thoughts. All right, guys, I'm gonna call it. We already got smaller, yeah. Yeah, we all got smaller, right? Yeah, it's amazing. It's really amazing. It's truly amazing. It's truly amazing. The world, has never been this screwed up since I was, in my time. Because, when this type of thing happened, years ago, I mean, it's not that the bad people were all of a sudden good, but they couldn't, the first day, right away, twist the whole story. That took a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, Very good, very good. Okay, so yeah, but some people, unfortunately, and that's they've chosen their side, and they'll get what they get, and you'll get what you get. So, good stuff. All right, any other questions, comments, or ideas?
Anybody else before we go? Thank you guys for showing up. It was really great. Cheyenne says, thank you, Rabbi, for being here. Somebody asked a question in the beginning. It says, I would like to know what has been happening inside Israel leading up to this, with what the state of Israel wants versus her people who want, I think you covered some of this to happen. It's disgusting that people don't understand how complicated this situation is.
Well, it's complicated. It is complicated because, there are imagine there are some people, I imagine that there are some people in Gaza who do not support the terrorists, I imagine. And that does complicate things. But the thing that people say is a lot of it's really a straight out lie. Straight out lie. It's really just bizarre. I mean, right. I live here. It's like you go to, you could see, you'll literally find, back in, as the Palestinian Authority was taking land, I know of Arabs that quickly moved out because they knew they did not want to be there. They knew they wanted to live under Israeli rule. So they didn't want the Palestinian rule. So the whole thing is a farce. I mean, it's like, so people making it complicated, but they don't have rights there. They're
the ones that's actually in the concentration camp. The Israelis are accused of that, but Hamas is the one that's controlling that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They keep them there. That's right. And they don't want to. I mean, how many millions of so-called illegal immigrants, or what do you call them, asylum seekers, have been absorbed into the world who have nothing to do with asylum seeking, have gone into Europe, gone into America, but no, we can't let any of the any of the people from Gaza across the Rafah crossing. No, they can't. We can't. They can't be absorbed. They can't be absorbed. Okay. How come millions and millions of people? Because they want this. They want to keep this as their thing. Rob, why don't you share with the group that video I sent of the Saudi Arabian guy talking?
Oh my goodness. I sent that out to several people since this, but it's a Saudi Arabian citizen, I would think, looks like pretty well to do, who
Right.
is breaking down the whole issue that the Palestinians don't have a land. They are a collective people that no Arab country wants because they're not Arab. He says they're not Arab.
That's what I said to you before. It was never people. And he says it straight out. And then he says to them, he says in this thing, he says, and the whole thing about Israel and Islam is not true. He didn't say this, but he said something like it.
No,
in
he
the
did.
Quran, it mentions Mecca 700 times, Medina 350 times. The only times it mentions Jerusalem, zero.
Right. And
then
he said definitively that the land of Israel belongs to the
Belongs to the
Jewish
Jews.
people.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. There
So
are
I am
many
pleasant.
Arabs who say this, but they can't because they get pressured. So
Right.
you know,
But I am pleasantly surprised that we're seeing this stuff bubble to the top. I mean, we're seeing, like, I'm surprised at the US's response, to be honest with you.
yeah, me too. I also am. It's going to change, unfortunately, soon. But
yeah.
But I was surprised because their base, has become so radical left. All of a sudden, all the Jews who were supporting Black Lives Matter find out that, well, they support the genocide of Jews.
But we know
So,
all this has to come out. This has to come out. It's all part of the plan.
Yeah. So don't get like I said, don't get nervous.
Yeah.
Know what you know, and if you convince someone, then you can. If not, then know what you know. Yeah, send it to the group. It's an interesting thing because it's not. It's kind of thing that I told you, but to hear it from an Arab telling it to a Palestinian is obviously much more impactful. All right, I gotta go, everyone.
Okay.
Talk to you.
Shalom,
I'll see you
shalom.
next
And
week, God willing.
I'll post that video up in the TIV Facebook page.
Wonderful. Okay,
guys.
all right.
Shalom,
Thanks.
shalom. Be safe, Rabbi. We love you. Thank you.
So much. Thank you.